Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome back to Tekpon. Today our guest is W. Curtis Preston, the Chief Technical Evangelist from Druva. Hello.
Good morning. Well, I guess it's good evening where you're at, but
Yeah, I hope I pronounced all the names right. Uh,
everything was fine.
yeah. Can you present yourself? Can you introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm, they call me Mr. Backup. I've been in the backup and recovery industry for about 30 years,
Mm-hmm.
and started out as a backup person, like in the trenches at a large bank in the U.S., and then eventually worked in consulting for a while, and about 5 years ago, I joined Druva, which is a SaaS-based data protection company.
So, what is Druva? More explicit.
Well, so uh, if you've got a data center, laptops, mobile devices, SaaS solutions, or cloud stuff running in the cloud, you've got to protect that, right? You've got to back that up. You've got to be able to recover it. You've also got to do DR, especially if you're talking about cloud. You have to do DR too, but I think it's a little bit easier to do DR in the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit harder to do DR for a data center. So if you want to do that, well, you need to do that. So if you're going to come up with a new solution to do that, you basically have two choices. You can buy some hardware and software and run it yourself on premises,
Yes.
or you can use a SaaS service. Now, SaaS has taken over the rest of the world. Hardly anybody, I don't know how it is in Romania, but hardly anybody here uses on-prem Exchange, right? They use Microsoft 365. People use Salesforce, etc. And we're just bringing the world of SaaS to data protection. So if somebody wants to protect any of those environments that I just mentioned, all they have to do is sign up for the service. They don't have to install any software or hardware. They don't have to manage any of that either.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it is self-maintaining in the background. In fact, because we're cloud native, basically services automatically spawn and die, I guess would be the opposite of spawn, uh, in order to meet the needs of the customers at that exact moment. And then we just charge you based on the number of things you're doing. So if it's a cloud resource, we're typically charging you per seat or per VM. If it's a data center, then we're charging you for the number of gigabytes that we're storing on your behalf after deduplication.
And how did you start your career? I don't know. Did you pick this industry or was it by?
Yeah,
I don't know.
it was kind of picked for me. I mean, I picked IT. I
Yes.
got out of the Navy in '93, which I think might be before you were born. I don't know if that's
Yes. I'm born in
okay.
2002.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I got out of the Navy in '93, and I did want to go into computers. That's literally all I knew. Um, and I used connection. My wife was actually an administrative assistant at this large bank, and I used that connection. She was a referral, or I guess I was a referral to her, and she got me the job as the backup guy at this large credit card company.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I got that job was because that was the job that was available, right?
Yeah.
It's not like I or anyone said, as a kid, like I've got a 9-year-old granddaughter, and last night I heard she wants to be a fashion designer, right? No 9-year-old says, I want to be a backup person, right? Right.
Yes.
So that was never my dream. I don't think that's anybody's dream, but it was the job I could get, right? And I'd been there about 3 years, and I went into consulting at a company that's no longer here, but I got put into the headquarters of a large oil and gas company, and I was supposed to be a sysadmin, right? I wasn't supposed to be the backup person. But when I got there, I found that their backups were broken, and I couldn't help myself.
Yes.
And So I ended up spending a lot of my sysadmin time on their backups, and then I actually decided to write. I had written a script to back up Oracle, and so I decided to publish that script in a magazine.
Okay.
You know, nowadays people are like, "What's a magazine?" Right? But but back then,
It was the
we
field.
actually
Yeah.
there was a magazine called Unix Review, which you could go to your local bookstore and you could buy that magazine. It would be on the shelves, and they published things like this. This is what they had, and
Mm-hmm.
I published that script on how to back up Oracle, and I got emails from around the world, like 75 emails. I just remember that it was 75 emails, and I'd never seen so much email in my life, and it was very effusive of saying, you opened my eyes, you turned on a light, whatever. That I finally explained Oracle backup to people, and so it sort of gave me a realization that I had developed a specialty in an area where most people just get out of as soon as they can, right?
Yes.
And literally, I don't know, within a few months, I started getting the idea that I would actually write a book about it. And I proposed that to O'Reilly, and they bit. And then it took me 3 years to write that first book. It was 700 pages.
Well.
And yeah, tell me about it. And then once I published that, well, then that was it, right? And so now I'm into backups. I'm a specialist in backup. I've written a book about backups. And so that pretty much set my career at that point on that trajectory for the rest of my life, I think.
So you become an expert in that field.
Yeah.
And do you like it? Did you grow to like it?
I do. What I like is the aspect of helping people to save themselves, right?
I understand. Yeah.
I've always been kind of a teacher type person. I feel the need to explain things to people, and and this is an area where there is a lot of misinformation. There is a lot of incorrect information, and as a result, the core thing at the end is whether or not people get their data back when something bad happens. And as a result of all of that misinformation, that often doesn't happen. So it kills me when I hear about people losing data. It kills me when I hear about people paying ransomware, right? But the opposite happens when I get to help somebody. If I get to help them basically proactively save their data so that they'll be able to, recover it when the worst happens.
And are you still offering your services? So are you looking to help other people, other companies?
Well, yes, but via Druva at this point, right? So
okay.
yeah, I'm not in consulting anymore, at least not now. Right now, my main way to help people is to explain how they could benefit from using SaaS for data protection. And my title is Chief Technical Evangelist, which basically means I just end up explaining things a lot, right?
Yes, and helping people.
Yeah, it's still helping people, but just helping them in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And just to give you one example, one of the things that I end up explaining a lot is, yes, you do need to back up your SaaS solution, right? So people have Microsoft 365 or Salesforce or G Suite, and they're like, "Oh, well, I'm in the cloud, right? I'm using SaaS. I don't have to worry about backup anymore." And and I explain to them, 100 different ways why that is not the case. It's still your data, and they're not backing it up for you. So you need to make sure you're backing it up.
Yeah, anything can happen, right? To that server.
Well, yeah, but the big thing, the overriding thing that I try to point out is backup and recovery is not in your contract, right? They make all these different statements. Oh, well, they have these features and these features. I'm like, yeah, but where in the contract does it say that they're backing up your data, and that they're, because it's not in there, right? I mean, maybe it's in there. Maybe you're a Salesforce customer and you've opted for their additional. They now have a backup service you can pay for. So you have the option of buying native Salesforce backup or backup from Druva. You know, we're not the only ones that do it, but you have the choice of doing third party or the Salesforce service. Well, then backup and recovery would be in your contract, right? But outside of that, it's just simply not there.
And at what stage should companies think about this? Should they think it? I don't know. When starting, when they're 4 people, or I don't know. What's your take on this?
Yes.
So from the very beginning.
Yeah, from the very beginning. The good news is it's really cheap then, right? When you're 4 people, you can go with a, you know, there are. Do you know the term prosumer?
Yes.
Okay, so you fall into the prosumer category at that point when you're just a couple of computers, maybe 3 or 4 laptops. Druva would not be where you would go at that point, because we tend to go with companies that are like at least 25 employees. Like that's about as low as we go. Not from a technology perspective, but from a paperwork perspective, right?
Yeah.
We just don't have the, you know, if you're going to sell to the prosumer world, you have to
be efficient.
Yeah, well, you have to be completely automated billing and all that stuff. We don't yet have that. So when you're 4 people, you use a prosumer service, and there are a handful of them out there, and that way you have all your stuff. Because what's worse than you're a small startup and you've been working for a year or two, and all of your work is stored in, let's say, Google Drive, right? It's very common nowadays to use something like Google Drive and to store all of your intellectual property in Google Drive.
Yes.
There was a company in the San Francisco area that did this, where they stored everything in the Google Drive, and then their sysadmin accidentally deleted their account.
Wow.
Poof.
I can imagine
the entire company ceased to exist, right?
Yeah.
Yes, when you very first begin, you should be backing up.
Okay. And I know, for companies with over 25 employees, why should they choose Druva instead of other companies?
I think there's 2 different things. The big thing is about risk mitigation. Okay. So the risk that you have today, you have obviously the risk of a physical disaster. Like I don't know when this will go live, but we're recording this while they're still recovering from Hurricane Ian in Florida. Yes, I actually grew up in Florida. I have family in Florida that went through the hurricane. They're fine. They were affected, but they're fine. So you can have that kind of event, or you can have you actually have a much better chance these days of suffering a ransomware attack. And those are your risks, and especially with the ransomware attack. So we had a survey via IDC recently, and it showed that 47% of the companies that had been surveyed for this survey, which was like 500 companies, 47% of them had suffered a ransomware, been attacked successfully by a ransomware attack.
I imagine in 5 years or 10 years, right?
Yeah,
in a longer period, yeah.
Yeah, so the your odds of that happening to you are quite high. So if your primary risk is cyber attack, you really need to take into account the cybersecurity of your backup system. And so if you're going to go with an on-prem backup system, the cybersecurity of that system is your responsibility.
Yes.
You're responsible for updating the services. You're responsible for updating the OS. You're responsible for setting the firewall rules. You're responsible for monitoring the ingress and egress to that server. You're all responsible, right? And so all of the risk is on you. If you go with a SaaS service like Druva, then the risk is now on us. We're responsible for updating the software. We're responsible for securing the infrastructure. And also, there's an inherent security that comes with, so you know the term air gap?
No.
So in data protection, we talk about having at least one copy of your data air gapped from the thing that it's protecting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Meaning there's a gap of air between the two.
Yes.
When you use an on-prem system, your data isn't air-gapped. It's sitting there in the data center waiting to be attacked. When you use a SaaS-based data protection system like Druva, all of your data is stored in the cloud in a different authentication system, in a different, it's a completely different environment. So one of the concerns that people have is like they use LDAP. And then they use the same LDAP credentials for their backup server. LDAP gets hacked, and now their backup server is compromised. So you could have a complete LDAP failure in every account in your LDAP environment, compromised,
Mm-hmm.
and they wouldn't be able to use any of that information to get into our infrastructure, right?
But were there any attacks on Druva?
We are constantly attacked, right? We are constantly probed. There hasn't ever been a successful attack against Druva, right? But being that we're a cloud vendor, we are constantly attacked. We are also constantly attacking ourselves, right? We use what's it called? Why is the word escaping me?
A test, like
a penetration test.
Okay.
So we use penetration tests constantly, and we provide those results to our customers and prospective customers to show that we're staying. That's a cloud best practice, right? So also that we support the idea of immutability and worm in the backup. So you can configure your backups. This is an optional feature, but you can configure your backups such a way that you say, let's say you've got 90-day retention, right? You could specify that once I back up something in this 90-day retention policy, no one can delete it, including you, right? Okay. So you can't. So what that protects you from is even if a hacker were to gain access to your credentials that you use to log into Druva, they wouldn't be able to delete your backups, right? So
why do you think people attack companies?
Well, today it's straight up money, right? I'd say there's two reasons. One, the number one appears to be money. Right, that seems to be the thing that these hackers tend to want, and then the number two, I'm going to go with state-sponsored attacks, and I'm gonna point a big old finger at our Ukrainian invading friends to the east. Right, that would be Russia, and they very much are using cyber attacks against their neighboring states, or just any states, in order to affect their means. Interestingly, with the Ukraine, by the way, because Russia had attacked them so much from a cyber attack perspective, they actually got really good at rebuilding their infrastructure. They got really good at DR, right? And so when things were happening with this actual invasion, they were really good at rebuilding their infrastructure. So they're like, yeah, you blew up a data center. We're over here now, right? Which is really cool. I wish the rest of the world was that resilient.
Yeah, you don't want to make that change until it affects you, right? We run away from it. So
right,
human nature. So I don't know. Are you active on social media?
Pretty active, yeah. I use Twitter a lot, and I use LinkedIn a lot. I don't do too much on Facebook. Facebook is like for friends and stuff for me,
Yes.
and I'm definitely not a
Me too.
TikToker.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not a TikToker. Nobody wants to see me dance. But yeah, but primarily on Twitter and on LinkedIn.
And what can people learn if they follow you?
I tend to support other people. I tend to post links to other people's content that I find
Very
interesting.
nice.
And on LinkedIn, I've changed how I work on LinkedIn. I do much fewer posts, and it's a way that I've learned to actually get better engagement is to do a lot fewer posts on LinkedIn. And there, I'm giving you I'm giving you links, for example, to my podcast. I have 2 different podcasts that I do.
You're a host?
Yes, I am the host. I'm the host. So I have Backup Central's Restore It All, and I also have Druva's No Hardware Required. So those are my 2
nice.
podcasts. So I do the Restore It All. I do that every week. And so we're 3 years old now. We're coming up on 200 episodes. It'd be a few months, but we're coming up on 200 episodes.
Do you have any piece of advice for somebody who wants to work in this industry?
Read. Yeah, so I would say be careful from whom you get advice. This goes true outside of IT and in the regular world, but just make sure that you're aware of any extra motivations that a person might have, right? Are they being compensated by a group to say a particular thing, right? And if they are, it doesn't mean that they're a liar. It just means that you have to take that into account. For example, I'm paid by Druva. My independent podcast, it's not a Druva podcast. We talk about data protection and data resiliency and data security. We don't talk about. I mean, we do talk about Druva, but not. But it's not what we talk about all the time on the podcast, right?
I understand. Yes.
You have to take what I say and take that into account when I say something. Yes. I often say that when I say something. I'll say like, listen, I know you're going to think that I'm saying this just because I work for Druva, but I've had this opinion for say 10 years, right? I'll often say that, but a lot of people hide those allegiances.
That's called a bias, right?
Yes, it's a bias, yeah, especially on social media. And a prime example, this is outside of the world of backup, but I don't know if it made the news in Romania, but in the U.S., you know who Kim Kardashian is, right?
Yes. Yes.
Did you see the news that she was in?
Crypto, yes.
Yeah, so she got fined by the SEC for promoting crypto on her social media channels without divulging the fact that she didn't just promote crypto, she promoted a particular crypto.
Yes.
Without divulging the fact that she had been paid to promote that particular crypto. And she got fined $1 million.
That's unmarked advertising, right? Unmarked.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Of course, it's easier to gain some followers, some investors, some if you say that you're not sponsored by them, but it's not
right. So that's one. The other is to just, like I said, to just read and listen a lot. And so the second one sort of helps diffuse the first one. So if don't pick just one person and only read and follow what they do. Look around, get diversified opinions about things, to come to your own conclusion, and the other thing that I would say is to pick one thing that excites you, that is interesting to you, brings you joy, whatever that is, and go with that thing, right?
Focus.
You know,
Yes.
there's a great phrase that, you know, if you know, pick something that you enjoy and you'll never work a day in your life, right?
That's true.
I clearly enjoy talking, right? I enjoy technology. I enjoy backup and recovery. I enjoy helping people. Well, this is my job right here, right? I'm doing,
It's
how hard is
absolutely- yeah.
this, right? This is great, right? And it's not like, you know, this morning I woke up and I was like, oh my God, I gotta go talk to Christian on the, right? No, I was like, oh, hey, I get to talk to somebody else, you know?
Yes, yes. That's awesome.
Yeah, so find something that excites you, you know, a particular area. A related advice would be find an area that is going to be an increasing demand, right?
Yes.
Right now, I think that's cybersecurity, right? Cybersecurity, you know, if you'd asked me 20 years ago, I would have said storage, because there will always be more bits, right?
Yes.
Storage is one of the areas of IT where it just gets bigger and bigger. You know, we've never made data smaller. Well, deduplication helps, but you know what I mean. But but today, if you were to just say, hey, Curtis, what should I specialize in? My first answer would be, well, what excites you?
Yes.
What
exactly.
interests you? I mean, God forbid you go into cybersecurity and you end up in crypto, and you know, and you're like, oh God, this is so boring, right? Well, don't do that,
Yes.
right? If you know, but pick something that has a future, right? As much as I love tape, and tape has a future, like I wouldn't go into tape today, right? By the way, more tape is sold today than ever before. I don't know if people know that. You know, people have this perception, especially people your age have this perception that nobody uses tape anymore. More tape is sold today than has ever been sold in the industry. And one of the reasons is that large cloud companies are using tape, right? They're using it as a storage device, not just
Yes.
they're not using it as a backup device. They're using it as a storage device for secondary, you know, for secondary data. And they've just optimized their storage system so that if you ask for a particular object, that, you know, I'll use, you know, so, you know, like with S3, you know, you've got S3 and you got Glacier and Glacier Deep Archive, these types of products. So when you put yourself on a product like Deep Archive, and I'm not commenting specifically on Deep Archive, I'm just saying when you allow your data to be put into a Deep Archive type storage, that cloud company is quite possibly taking your object and storing it directly on a tape somewhere, probably on multiple tapes.
Well,
And then when you retrieve that object, it's pulled directly back off that tape, right? And so for that reason, tape still has, you know, quite a bit of future. I just don't think it's the big growth industry
yes.
of today's IT industry, right?
It's a good
Cybersecurity,
example. Yeah.
cybersecurity is a huge one. And I don't see that going down anytime soon.
Okay.
You know,
and
especially again to our, you know, to your friends to the east there.
yeah, you're right. And one last question: what's your favorite software apart from Druva?
My favorite software. You know what? That I have a really good answer to that question. Can I do two? How about that? Can I do
3,
two?
5.
All right.
How many one?
All right. So my current favorite new piece of software that's new to me, but I've had it for about 6 months, is called Descript.
Yes, I use it too.
Have you used it? Isn't Descript amazing?
Yeah.
And it's
For transcripts.
so much. Yeah. They're coming out with a new version, and the new version isn't quite ironed out, and I'm not so happy about the status of the new version, but it is an amazing, it changes so much about the way you edit podcasts, especially
Yes.
video podcasts, right?
Yes.
So that's number one. And then the number two and that would be Dragon dictation software, right? So I've been using them for, I don't know, 15 years. Wow. Basically, all of my books, with the exception of the very first one that I hammered out with my hot little fingers, all of my books are done as voice.
Wow!
Right.
So cool.
So
cool.
the way I wish I used to have it right next to me here, but I've moved it up to my bedroom. I have a treadmill. I have in front of the treadmill. There's a platform. I put the laptop on that platform. And I have it's a cheap Windows laptop because Dragon only runs on Windows and I'm a Mac guy. It's a cheap Windows laptop. And by the way, Dragon gave up the Mac platform. They were trying for a while. We're going to come out with a Mac version, and then they're like, "Screw it, we're done. We're done with you, Mac people." So they only do Windows. So I have a cheap Windows box that just does this. I plug it in. I strap in a microphone, and I walk on the treadmill. And I talk to it. I talk my book to it, right? So anytime I'm writing an article or a book, I am doing that via voice, right?
Very interesting. Haven't thought about that. And is it?
It's a great tool. What's that?
Is it accurate?
It is. Well, I wouldn't use it if it wasn't, right? It's like 99% accurate. It's more accurate than Descript, right? Descript, by the way, is amazing because it's pretty accurate given that it's dealing with multiple voices and all kinds of things, right?
Yes.
But it's much more accurate than Descript because you actually train it to your voice. You train it how you say things. And so, you, for example, you speak English, but you do have, a bit of a Romanian accent. Yes. It would learn your accent, right? And you also can correct verbally, right? So you might say, I don't know, you say one word and it comes up as another word.
Yes.
You can say select that word, and then you say correct that, and then you say the actual word, and what it'll do is it'll come up with you'll say correct that, and it comes up with a choice of like 1, 2, 3. What do you want it to be?
Wow.
And
didn't do that.
Yeah. So there you go. Hang on. Well, yeah. No, never mind. Sorry. There's a call.
Yeah, no worries. We'll finish in 30 seconds. Okay, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And you gave a lot of valuable insights. I'm really grateful. And nice to meet you.
Okay, you too.